live? Let me just double check. It's about right. I think we're on.
I think we're on. Yeah.
Right. Hi guys.
Hi guys.
Welcome to a lovely conversation I'm gonna have with my wife this afternoon. Babe, welcome to Hard Talk.
Hard Talk
with Wilson Dekhale.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, babe, we've been married almost 2 years now.
Yeah, a year and 8 months.
A year and 8 months to be precise. She's doing all the counting.
Mm-hmm.
So just tell me, how has that been? How wonderful of a husband have I been on a scale of 1 to 10? Don't be afraid to go for 10. And yeah, just share a bit of your experience. How have you found marriage versus dating, and what have been some of your highlights so far and some of the things you've had to learn?
Okay, so first of all, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think you've been a 7. You know, because you're human and we don't want the people to think you're like Jesus.
Fair enough.
I think you've been a great husband. You've been a great person to live with. I think we've been very honest with each other, so it hasn't been difficult in terms of just understanding that we're both human. I've enjoyed watching you grow into a husband from the guy I knew at varsity. I found it very interesting just how the person I knew at varsity and the person that you are now, or that you constantly becoming to me, because every day I learn something new about you, are two different people sometimes. And it's like, hi, nice to meet you almost most days. But I think that's been the interesting thing, that you know, the person you marry is not necessarily the person that you're gonna live with, because you get to really know who they are when they in their comfort zone and they've let their guard down. I think living in a loft has been very helpful because there's nowhere to hide. So yeah, that's how I found it. And I think the difference between dating and being married is that I could just be myself, and like I said, there's nowhere to hide, so it is what it is.
So you feel just a bit in someone's space, in someone's face all the time, because you know you're married now, you're together all the time, so you feel like there's parts of someone you get to know more because of that.
Yeah, and I think because, you know, like when you're dating, if you made me mad, I'd just go home.
Yeah.
Now I'm home and there's nowhere to go. So I think then you've gotten to see my character when I couldn't run away, and I've gotten to see your character when you couldn't run away. And I think that's what makes the person seem like a whole new person. But yeah, tell me how you feel. How have you found being married?
How I feel about you?
Am I a 10? Am I 15?
I adore you. You're just the most beautiful decision I've ever made.
Oh, thank you.
But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the 1 and 8 months that we've had together, and it's, for me, it hasn't been. I haven't had anything that's a shocker to me. I just think the years of dating have been very foundational. You know, in terms of assessing someone and getting to know someone. I think having dated for a long time, almost 5 years, was a blessing in disguise. It came with its own challenges, and you know, at times it just felt like time wasn't moving fast enough for us to get married. But I think in those 5 years, we really got to know each other. We really, I think, put values into our dating that I think we've carried into our marriage, and that's been fun for me. I think the foundations have been very solid, and I've enjoyed getting to know you and, you know, having a lot of fun with you. I think one of the things that I've just enjoyed is the friendship and having you in my life all the time. You know, it doesn't matter what's happening, we can have fun, do spontaneous things, and that's just been something that I've enjoyed. So it's been amazing.
Oh, wow.
All right, so let's see what we've got there.
Can I read it?
Go for it.
Okay. So many young people see Lobolo as a burden. Many even consider eloping. Why do the process? What motivated you guys to go through with it? So I think maybe we can start with the why do the process. Like why go through the whole pain, as some people, you know, like I'm thinking of the word burden, like the pain of doing Lobolo. Why do the whole process? What do you think about that?
Sure.
What is Lobolo for you? Maybe we should start there. Yeah.
Where do we even begin? So obviously, I think the practice is rooted in our culture of wanting to honor the wife's family when a man is of age and he wants to get married. And traditionally, the way it's been done, cows were exchanged, for the wife, and it was just, I think, about showing honor, and I think maybe showing a man's ability to provide or take care. And it was a great family moment because historically, the guy's family would be involved in that as well. And so, it was about celebrating culture and bringing two families together. I think that's why you do it. So I do still feel the sense of honor in doing it. I think it's a beautiful practice, and we'll talk up in a bit about how it's changed. And I think some of the bad stuff that's part of it or makes it particularly challenging to honor today. But I think in and of itself, I think it's beautiful, and that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. So for me, I think more on the why do the process. I think it's an opportunity for the two families to get to know each other, in that mostly a couple would have been dating, they know each other, but then Lobolo becomes an opportunity for the parents to actually meet each other, or the families to meet each other, and almost like suss each other out to see where's my son going or where's my daughter going, and are they going to take care of her. I think that's why you actually do the whole thing of bringing the cows, which now we're doing the money, where the guy's showing that I'm not going to take your daughter from you where she's been well taken care of, where she's fed, she's clothed, into a situation where she doesn't have. And Lobolo is that opportunity for the guy to say, look, I can take care of her, and this is how I can show for now what I've been able to accumulate to show you that I can take care of your daughter. And she's not gonna, I'm not taking her to the wild. So I think that's why you do the process. So how's it changed? You alluded to it changing. What do you mean?
I think it must have been easier when cows were were given in the exchange. I think when now that money is involved, I think it's become so difficult. I think life back in the day was a bit more simple, and livestock was a measure of wealth in some sense, but it was easily quantifiable. And people lived the same kind of lifestyle. So it didn't feel like there are instances that are more demanding than others. Where I think now that you're using money, and money is a means of sustaining yourself, lifestyle, where you're staying, the cost of living, all these things make it a bit complex. The process a bit complex, and so I think the way that traditionally it's been approached, it's the same, but I think the circumstances have changed a lot. And I think that they need to be taken into account. But that's just my reading of it. I don't know if you'd agree. Would you disagree with that?
No, I wouldn't disagree in that life has changed, like how we're doing life now and how they did life back in the day. And I would imagine we also almost like, if it was like a generational thing, I think we almost at step 3 where our parents would have been in the middle, where it would have changed as well for them in terms of with urbanization and all these things, and people moving to Joburg and moving to bigger cities. I think it's changed a lot about how our culture works and how traditions are being implemented, in that now you're not just the Swatis marrying the Swatis, you're not just the the Ngwinis marrying each other. It's now the Swatis meeting the Tswanas and meeting the Pedis, and in itself, because we in different parts of South Africa, we do things differently, even though some of the parts are a bit similar. And I think with urbanization, life has changed and tradition is sort of changing, even though I think our parents are trying to hold on to their side. But I think that has caused a lot of the change. So I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just saying you need to consider that and consider the movement of people. And that's caused some of the challenges. In that, I mean, like, you're in South Africa and tribalism is a real thing, and I think it's added into the difficulties of Lobola and what it means to the different tribes and how it's expressed by the different tribes. So I think that's caused quite a bit of
that's true. So when you think of, I think it would be great for us to share a bit of our experience with Lobola.
So I just wanted to ask, like we've kind of spoken about what it exists for, or back in the day what it existed for. But if I was a young person thinking about getting married, I'd wonder like, why can't I just elope? Like that question kind of alluded to. Why did we do it? Why did we decide to continue with the process or the tradition of lobola?
When we didn't have to.
Yeah.
Or did we feel we had to?
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is honoring culture, and I think particularly as Christians, there was nothing in it that we felt, actually this is just wrong. So I thought when you look at the practice of it and what it could potentially do for us, I thought, well, this is something worth doing. If everything goes well, two families are united. I think in that process, your family gets to know my family, they get to know me, and they are assured that I can take care of you. And I think that assurance is not just for your family as well, quite interestingly, but from my dad as well. He wanted to know that I would be in a position to take care of you. And I think for him, that gave him a lot of assurance that I was indeed ready to get married. So, he could confidently release me when the time came because of that certainty. So, yeah, I think we, would you agree with that we wanted to honor culture? We didn't feel like there was anything in it that was...
Yeah, I think for me, it was like, as a pair, definitely it was to honor culture. But for me, it was also to honor my mom, to honor culture and honor my mom. And like you said, as a Christian, I wanted to give my mom or even my extended family a view of Christians honoring culture. And that because I'm Christian, I haven't basically said, or like villainized culture.
Yeah,
because sometimes that's how Christians come across. But I wanted to say to my mom, I'm Christian, I believe in Jesus, but I also believe that there's something good in this, in lobola and the culture, and there's something beautiful about it. And I felt it would be a beautiful way for me to come over to her side, because I've always felt there's been a bit of a disconnect in terms of what does it look like for my daughter to be, for lack of a better word, like a born-again Christian, as opposed to be a Lutheran, where she grew up like that, and culture and that was very, intertwined, where she felt like I'm in this white church, you just discarding everything about who we are. And I felt doing lobola would be a great way to say, like, I'm your daughter and I understand where you come from, and I want to show you that who I am and who I am in Christ is not separate.
Yeah.
Like my culture and my Christianity is not separate. And I felt like it would build a bridge, and it did, and it made our relationship so much stronger. So that was my inner reason for doing lobola.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, because I think there's an opportunity to reflect something, particularly as Christians.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of redemptive work that needs to be done, but we also want to celebrate our culture. It's who we are, and we love it, and there are things that we want to embrace and show that these are good things, and God is not, or the gospel is not opposed to those good things in our cultures that are neutral. So,
So, what was your, like you had your idea of why you're doing it, and I had my idea of why I'm doing it, and our idea of why we did it. But what was the real experience of it? Like the good and the bad.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And the surprising.
Sure. So my overall, so let me just share a bit of my experience, and I think the experience is hard when you pin it against expectations.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between those two things. And I think when we began to process it, I had only expectations, before the experience came through. And the experience comes in light of the expectations. So I think that's where it really became hard, because when we talk about expectations from my culture's point of view, as a Bedi man, there's a way in which lobola is done, and generally the sums don't get crazy over the negotiations. I've got my sisters, who's about 3 years older than me, got married some years before we did. I think 2015. 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and just a couple of relatives in my culture, and the process is so different, and the money exchange is so different. I think The highest expectation was concerning that, what are the expectations from your culture, and what am I used to from my culture, and where do those things meet? Obviously you can't say one is wrong or one is right, but what's the middle ground? And I found that particularly challenging when we began the process of negotiating, and we've just found that our expectations were so mismatched. That was a bit stressful. So yeah, that's been part of my experience. I'll share a bit later on some of the expectations and why I think there's such a big mismatch there. But what has been your experience?
So for me, it was double-fold in that there was the one side where, like, I'd spent a lot of my, that point, that adult life where you're gonna get married, and where I'm not dating just to date, but I'm dating to get married, portion of my life, talking to my mom about Lobola and about culture and about traditions. And what was amazing is how, and what I've learned, and I think like a lot of people need to understand, is that there's you and your mom, especially in like a single mom or single parent scenario like me. There was my mom and myself, but then crazy things happened when everybody else got involved, because in like, the whole process of varsity, when we're dating, I talk to my mom and we talk about, no, I don't like this about Lobola, I like this about Lobola, I can respect that about it, I don't believe that's correct about it. And we'd have had these conversations. It was very difficult because she's your mom, and I'm trying to love you, but at the same time I'm trying to say, this is what I believe, and this is why I believe that particular scenario about Lobola is not right, in terms of just how much does the guy pay, and is the amount of money equal to who I am as a person, or is this just the families coming together? Because if it's just the families coming together, it could be 20 rand, because you're just coming together as families, getting to know each other to bring these two people together. And we'd agreed, and she said, what do you think it should cost, or what do you think, what can he afford? And I'd come back to you, and we'd gone back to her and said, no, this X amount, is what he can afford. And what I found amazing was when the uncles came and when the aunts came, how shocking it was that, they were like, do you want us to give you away? It's like we're giving you away. And that for me had been so shocking, because I felt like I'd had this conversation with my mom and about how Lobola is not the value of Spiso. It's just this thing to bring people together. So that was my experience, and that was a bit shocking. And I think it also trickled into just how you experienced it as well, because we'd had this agreement. But I soon realized that there's my mom and I, and then there's everybody else. And on Lobola Day, it's everybody else. Yeah.
So I loved what you said earlier about how we get to celebrate culture and show its beauty, particularly as Christians. I do think that's very important, and I think in this whole process of doing Lobola, I think for me one of the things that stood out where we need reform, and we can talk about how that can be changed in greater detail in a second. But I just found that it's actually the couple that are at the center of this whole thing, because it is through them that two families are being brought together. And I think their experience of the whole Lobola process affects the ability to do that with joy, and without feeling like we're doing it just to end the process. But we really feel in our hearts that we can join two families together. And I think that experience is very important. What they experience is very important to achieve that purpose. And what I found is that from a traditional or cultural point of view, in the way that Lobola is approached, the family, as you were saying, is almost more important than the couple. So we lose the focal point of the couple. And I think that's one of the things that for me saddens me when I even reflect on how it's been for us. And I think that's very important, because even when you negotiate, the monies, what's decent, what's fair, I think some of it does have to do with the couple in front of you. What stage of life are they in? What jobs do they hold? Where do they stay? Because what we want to do is aid them to get into marriage and bring two families together.
Yeah, I think just when I think of our lobola, I think even though for the families we were not the focal point. Like I feel like sometimes they can even do the lobola without us being there,
Yeah,
because it's so much about the families, and sometimes it almost becomes like which family is more respected or which family is gonna come out the victor, you know. But I think for me, even when that was happening, I felt such a strong sense of this is a time that's building trust between you and I, in that even though other people didn't recognize it as being about us, we could make it about us. And I think one of the things that could have like just become a big mess was when, you know, the values changed and everything. And I remember when you said, but we agreed, you know, and how I had to say to you, yes, we agreed, and my mom and I agreed, and all three of us were okay with this, but you need to trust that I didn't change this and I didn't overlook what we've spoken about, that it gave us such a good opportunity to build a trust foundation between us, that even though other people didn't allow us that, or other people didn't create the space for it, I feel like God did. In that, coming out of that, you know, but you said, but I said, and we said, we walked out of that with you trusting that I was a person of my word, and that even though the situation didn't allow, we stood by what we had agreed on. And for me, that gave me so much more respect for you, that I know so many friends where something like that happened and people ended up breaking up, that we stood strong. So I feel like for other couples, it is good to know that you can stand strong as a couple and you can see it as about you, even though somebody else doesn't, you know. But it is a redeemable aspect of lobola. You know, it would be beautiful to see families do that and see them put the couple up and say, you know, like, it's about you guys and it's about your future and where you heading towards. But then people will never always give you that opportunity. And I feel like we were graced by God to actually have that opportunity and have that mess happen, but have God step in and say, but actually, I recognize that it's about you, and build a trust foundation for us. So that was my experience in that sense of it being about the couple.
So it obviously gets redeemed, and I think as the process unfolds, you do you know, look for God and you know, look for opportunities to, you know, lean into God and trust Him more. Because it just you just realize more and more the situation's out of your hands. And so, but going forward, when we have kids, how would you wanna how do you think, you know, are some of the things that we will do differently from our experience, and you know, how can we redeem the bad elements, or you know, the bad aspects of this process and still uphold it? So what do you think?
So I think if you're looking at it in a like God redeeming it and in a Christian lens, for me, I think you need to go back to the fact that as Christians, everything we do and our whole religion has to do with our relationship with God, you know, which is through Christ. I think the element of lobola being so cold and being about just other people needs to be redeemed, in that relationship needs to be honored. Not just the relationship of the couple, but if you're saying is to bring the families together, then it's a relationship thing. And what I would say, especially for my culture, because I know we've got Tswana friends who've done it differently, where the families have met before they did the first lobola, without a better way of saying installment, you know, but
a meeting before
the actual lobola with uncles and aunts and everybody else. I think if we're saying you're bringing families together and you're Christian, then it's about relationship. And I think for us, you only met my mom after the first time we had the lobola situation. And I think that made it so much more harder, you know, that made it so much more harder, because then you're a person they don't know, you're a stranger, you know, and that was, I think that's what made it cold. So I would say you need to focus on the element of relationship. So for the families to actually meet prior to the actual lobola day, and create a situation where people introduce themselves, people relax, and you know, they can talk about where they come from, and which is a very comfort zone for our parents, because they like that. They like talking about who they are, and where they come from, and their clans, to sort of to honor that and create that platform where we all just humans.
Because if you don't have that, then you meet each other in this tent room for the first time, and you're trying to negotiate, and everyone's kind of thinking, I don't want to come come out
Across
feeling
as-
like we've lost,
Yeah.
or and everyone's got expectations, and you're sort of everyone's sussing each other and reading each other in the room, and it's maybe not the best context to build relationship, and in fact put the couple first. In that situation. So that's
and I think coming from a whole from God first, we're in a multicultural situation, and I think that's something I've always considered, how some of our white colleagues in church would meet their kids' boyfriends during dating. Obviously, in our culture, that's like very frowned upon, and I wouldn't want to do it exactly as other people. But I think there's something beautiful about that, in that they know this boy who's dating their daughter, or they know this girl who's dating their son, and this person becomes a human being. It's not that boy you're wondering about, and how he can be messing around with your child. And when they come for lobola, you just like
just hope for the best as well.
So I think there's something we can learn from the more Western culture in terms of how they build relationship throughout the dating process.
Yeah, so I think for me as well, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is doing your best to steward the gift of marriage, because I think lobola is a process in doing that, in helping people steward the gift of marriage. And part of that, I think, in God's heart is to really bring about unity, which I think part of the process theoretically tries to achieve, but I don't think the practice fully allows for that to happen. And I think I'd love to see a situation where we sort of almost detach ourselves from the process, and we're not the most important people doing this. But I can imagine if our kids are grown and they reach that stage, I'd want to put their interests first, and find out, how can we help you? We will still do lobola, but what's helpful for you? How can we best serve you? And through that, building friendship and trust with them, allow the process to bring two families together. I think it's very dangerous to remove the couple from the situation, and I think at times you can end up burdening them financially. I think especially in our context where there's still black tax, as they say, and sometimes it's that shouldn't feel like a burden, because you're giving back to your family and so forth, but you don't want it to be a burden. You want the couple to be at a place where financially they're willing to do that and they're able to do that. And how can we help them get there? How can we help them navigate this tough economic times, and help them not get indebted because they want to get married? And making sure that when we assess a guy's readiness or ability to take care of his wife, it's not by our own preconceived standards, but I can look at this guy, look at where they live, and say he's more than capable. And also in what is being demanded of him, you're not actually preventing him from taking care of his wife and his family as he's getting married. I think that's a huge thing. And I think marriage, the process needs to work much more stronger to bring that across.
And I think also if my daughter was getting married or my son was getting married, I think, and I just want to stress this whole thing, that it's a relationship, and I think in the time that we're living in, I'd like to be able to do a lobola, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with finances. I think we living in a time where we being very creative about how we do things, how we live our lives and how we work even, that I think lobola is also hopefully slowly getting to that point where he doesn't need to bring X amount of money, but we can create a situation where these families can come together. And as you're saying, where the families can come together and say, how can we serve you, Wilson and Sfiso, to make sure that you go into a future where you can prosper. So I'm excited for that. And to create that precedent almost for our children and their children.